What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot of stuff to really talk about today. We have a potentially big severe weather outbreak coming in the next couple of days with the threat of large hail, wind, and damaging tornadoes all across the board right there. We're going to go ahead and go over all the stuff that we are looking at going into Tuesday, but here's what we have so far right now from the Storm Prediction Center. They have a more concentrated slight risk before. When we reported on it yesterday, we had a 15% risk, pretty much going all the way up into Michigan. Now we have a bit of a marginal risk for much of Ohio, Michigan, with parts of Wisconsin, into Missouri, Arkansas. But the main threat is going to be in Illinois and Indiana, as almost the entire state of Illinois and a good two-thirds of Indiana is in a slight risk right here. The probabilistic is a 15% risk of significantly severe weather. Well, not significantly severe, just regular severe weather happening within 25 miles of a point. Although significantly severe weather isn't out of the question, we'll have to pay attention to it. Here's the summary that we have right here. Scattered strong to severe thunderstorms associated with an isolated wind damage, hail, and possibility of a few tornadoes will be possible from late Tuesday afternoon into the evening and overnight from portions of the Ozarks into the mid-Mississippi Valley and southern Great Lakes. So that's what we have going on right there. We're going to go ahead and zoom in on this to kind of get to the main events that we're kind of looking at right here. As of what I'm looking at right here, according to the SPC, the moisture return on the forecast is supposed to be weak. We're only supposed to see increasing levels into the upper 50s to lower 60s dew points across much of the area right there. In fact, we can go ahead and pull it up right here for the surface right here. Here's the dew point temperature for much of Illinois and much of Indiana right here. We're at 60, 61, 62. So there has been a noticeable increase over the course of the last couple of days. Before, we were looking at somewhere in the mid-50s, then upper 50s. Now we're looking at dew points cracking the lower 60s in parts of Illinois and even into Indiana right here. Now, this may not seem like, if you compare that to other severe weather events, like a big deal, like, oh, it's only 61 degree dew point, but let's take a look at the temperature and compare that real quickly. If you compare that to the temperature, well, a lot of the stuff that you're seeing right here, like, we're only looking at upper 60s, lower 70s temperatures and degrees Fahrenheit going into this, and that's especially interesting right there, because what that's telling me right there is that the relative humidity that's going into this is going to be pretty high. And as I can see right here, the relative humidity is pretty consistently moist right there, anywhere from the upper 70s to lower 80s, with some even breaking 90 in parts of not northwestern, but western Indiana right there. So we're going to have to pay attention to it. It does look like it's going to be a moist environment for some severe weather at this current point in time. What kind of severe weather are we looking at? Well, based off of what we're looking at, the Cape, according to some models, is forecast to peak only around 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram across much of the moist sector. However, I have been looking at other models, and they've been showing Cape values of significantly higher margins, and considering that this is February and not May, it's rather disturbing to take a look at. Now, granted, I have seen like models like the North American and European give up like a 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram of Cape, but other models that are starting to trickle in, like the RAP, the NAM Nest, the GEM models, and the GFS, are giving us slightly higher areas with that. So here's our surface-based Cape we have right here, pulled up for you. For the RAP model, this is at 18Z or noon on Tuesday right here. What we have pulled up is essentially our Cape values, like I keep saying. I know I keep saying it like a broken record. Please bear with me. But we're looking at areas peaking around 1950 joules per kilogram in central Illinois near Decatur. And we're looking at a consistent area of over 1,500 joules per kilogram of Cape, pretty much from the extreme cutoff of Cook County over here in Illinois, all the way through pretty much the northern half of Indiana right there, going all the way down to Indianapolis and Fishers over there. So we're going to have to pay very close attention to that right there. Here's the NAMS forecasted Cape right there. As you can see, it just came in. We're looking at maybe at most 1,000 joules per kilogram of Cape according to this one, although we are looking at Cape values in the hundreds, and considering the fact that we had an incident earlier this month with only Cape values of around like 700, kind of leading to that tornado in Evansville, Wisconsin, earlier this month, it's still something to stay alert about because February severe weather outbreaks require less energy than, let's say, May severe weather outbreaks. Here's the NAM nest that we can pull it up for you right here. The NAM nest is interesting in this case. Similar to the NAM, it wants it kind of more concentrated in eastern Iowa and western Illinois right there. That's where the highest CAPE values are. Let's go ahead and take a sounding just out of curiosity to kind of see what this has to offer and what potential threat we're looking at right here. It's going to take a second to load up, so I do apologize for that. I just wanted to see what's going on. This is for 4 p.m. on Tuesday for parts of Iowa and Illinois. This is taking a abnormally long amount of time to load up, but we'll move on as that continues to do that. But okay, never mind, it just came up. Here's what we're looking at right here. This is for parts of eastern Iowa right here. Surface-based CAPE of over 1,800 right there. The lapse rate's at 8.6 degrees Celsius per kilometer, which that's a very considerable lapse rate right there if you want severe weather. If you want decent severe weather, maybe 7 or above would be good, but if you want good severe weather, lapse rate of 8 would be actually pretty good for that. It's purple for a reason right there. It's not absolutely unstable. You only get to that point where you're at 9.8 degrees Celsius per kilometer at that rate, but we're not seeing that. The most we're seeing is 8.6 with this. And with the shear here, which is pretty interesting, the SRH values are cracking 200 in a lot of these areas right there. And the surface to 1 kilometer shear is at around 28 knots, which is pretty interesting to take a look at. Surface to 6 kilometers is 52 knots, which is going to enhance our supercell development right there. But the thing that's kind of I'm paying attention to is kind of the directional shear. And this is, we're not really getting that much directional shear. It's more of a speed shear type of thing, which is kind of more favorable for supercells and wind-based events and sometimes hail-based events than tornado-based events. Although, if you do have a speed shear event when a tornado does organize and develop, you're going to see a situation where it could get really strong really fast. A good example of this, Rolling Fork last year on March 24th, 2023, where you had a very speed sheared event and there wasn't much directional, but the storms you did get dropped tornadoes that were EF4 in strength, like we saw with Rolling Fork. But yeah, that's kind of what we're kind of seeing what we with the NAM nest right here. Now we're going to go ahead and show you the GEM RDPS right there. The GEM is pretty interesting to say at the very least. The GEM wants CAPE values cracking 2,500 across much of northern Indiana near South Bend, and especially in rural Indiana right here. We'll go ahead and show you a sounding of this right here on the Pivotal Weather site right here. Here's what we have right here for you guys for the GEM RDPS. If we take a look at the sounding, there's a dew point of 63 degrees Fahrenheit and a temperature of 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Pretty moist environment to say the very least. You have CAPE values on the surface around 2,800 joules per kilogram, which for February is absolutely massive for northwest Indiana, ladies and gentlemen. To kind of give you a gauge on how much energy there is with this according to these soundings, let me kind of enhance this a little bit further. The Palm Sunday outbreak, I know this is kind of an unfair comparison, they only had about 1,400 CAPE of 1,400 joules per kilogram maximum with this. However, the shear was absolutely monstrous at over 100 knots at 6 kilometers. Not saying that this is going to happen. In fact, the shear that we have right here is 24 at 1 and 48 at 6. But the fact that there is this much energy for this thing to work at is pretty interesting to say the very least. And I'm a bit concerned going into Tuesday for this, considering that A, this is the end of February, not the end of May, and B, we're looking at these kinds of values right there, and the fact that we are already seeing a warm enough period for essentially a severe weather outbreak to kick in. So that's what we have going on with the GEM RDPS. The GEM GDPS, as you can see right here, unfortunately, it is more zoomed out. Similar setup right here. We're looking at CAPE values cracking 2,000 across much of Illinois and Indiana over here. More around 1,300 to 1,500 across much of Illinois and even into St. Louis as well. We're seeing CAPE values around 1,400 to 1,500 joules per kilogram. But if we go ahead, if we take a look at the wind shear with in association with this, the shear that we are seeing, the speed shear, isn't particularly that great at 1 kilometer, but the 6 kilometer stuff is what I'm paying attention to. If we go ahead and show you the GEM GDPS situation right here, we're going to kind of show you what we're looking at for areas around Springfield, Decatur, that area. going into this right here. Here's what we're looking at right here. The speed shear is around 50 knots at 6 kilometers, 19 at 1 kilometer. So I'm not overly too concerned for it like being record breaking or anything like that. And also we're looking at a drier profile as well, which is why you get lesser cape. You're seeing we're seeing our dew points in the mid to upper 50s and our temperatures in the mid 70s right there, which isn't always particularly that favorable for severe weather development right there. With that high of a temperature differential, you're not going to see a high enough humidity for that to happen. If we go ahead and show you if we don't have the, oh yeah, we have the dew point temperature right there. Gem GDPS interestingly has the highest dew points around northern Indiana right there. So we're going to go ahead and take a sounding out of there as well to kind of see what the difference is, to take a look at and kind of get a gauge of this. Okay, 60 dew point to 69 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 at 1 kilometer to 43 at 6. Definitely something to pay attention to. And also, with the same with the last one, directional shear is also going to be important as well, because that's a more likely situation to get more tornadoes, whereas speed shear is a more likely situation to get stronger tornadoes. Now, I'm not going to go out here and say, oh, we're looking at a massive tornado outbreak or anything like that. Oh, you should get ready and everything like that. No, I'm not going to do that, mainly because there's not enough evidence to support a tornado outbreak at this current point in time. It's mainly going to be a severe weather outbreak. And from what I'm seeing from all the profiles I'm looking at, it's going to be less of a discrete situation. I was talking to some guys at my school about this as well last night on Discord. Basically, what we think is going to happen is we're going to see pretty much a discrete situation that if it does happen, it's going to be a very, very, very limited amount of time. I'd say like maybe 3 hours maximum. And then after that, it's going to kind of merge up into a squall line. And you're not going to see a very high enough cap with this. You're not going to see your classic loaded gun situation in a lot of this area right there, because what you would want for your loaded gun is essentially for the morning for it to be extremely capped, but in the afternoon, if you want severe weather, you're going to need the cap to be to completely break. And as the temperatures continue to warm up during the day, that's more likely for that to happen. But yeah, that's what we're thinking is going to happen. Just the cap's not strong enough to really hold the initiation until late afternoon, and it's going to be more of a squall line situation. But still, you're going to see some very damaging winds around 60, maybe even 70 miles per hour in some of these areas. You're going to be seeing large hail, maybe an inch and a half at most, and there is the probability of some tornado activity coming in the near future, and we will continue to update you here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But one last thing I will say before I get going right here is if there is a tornado potential with this right here, it's a more likely situation that it's going to be more in like northern Illinois, northern Indiana, that area right there. Let's go ahead and show you the SRH values. Yeah, it's going to be more of an area right here because A, there's going to be a higher SRH situation right there, and B, there's going to be higher directional shear, especially in southwestern Michigan, parts of northwestern Ohio, parts of northern Indiana, and parts of northern Illinois. So we will continue to update you here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're closing the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us make more videos like these. The goal of this channel, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.